So you want to get divorced, but you don't want to be like all lawsuity about it. I get it. It is one of those things that unfortunately our society has not come up with a very clear answer to a better way to get a divorce than to simply file a lawsuit against your ex or soon-to-be ex-spouse. And I think it's kind of sad. You know, I was in law school and thinking I would never get divorced, thinking how horrible it would be to get divorced. I didn't want it. I just wanted to have a nice little Catholic fairy tale marriage, 4 kids, live happily ever after. I was so Catholic that I met the Pope on my honeymoon. But here I am, a divorced mom of 2 kids, and my co-parent and I got divorced in 6 weeks. And we're both attorneys, so it's hard to say that we didn't have the help of attorneys, but we didn't hire anyone else to represent us. We just got this thing done. And today, 2 years out, we're friends and friendly with each other. I guess we're not friends, but we're friendly with one another. And we work well together. Our kids are always happy that we get along and that we do things in their best interest. And I think part of the reason that we were successful in doing that is that we put aside the desire to go look in all of the case law and all of the statutes about what the law would give us and what we were entitled to based on our overnights with our children and based on our non-marital property versus the marital estate. You know, we kind of just looked at it and thought, what's reasonable here? And that's what we did, and it worked really well for us, all things considered. Have we had bumps in the road? Absolutely. Have we had issues with what we're going to do regarding some day-to-day decisions and some significant things regarding school and education and IEPs? I mean, you name it. Yeah, we've had some things. We've definitely had to work on things, and we're just like anybody else. We're co-parents who both love our kids dearly, and we want what's best for them. And I think there's a lot of people out there like this. And so I founded Co-Family Mediation with the idea that people would be better off if they could sit down and have a conversation about what they think is going to be best for their kids without worrying about the other side hiding the ball or being strategic in their gamesmanship, playing games in any way. You know, I think that when people can put aside their differences and focus on what's best for their children, they're often able to make really good agreements. I think people are a lot smarter than our courts and many attorneys give them credit for. And I think that they can get this done. And I'm not trying to say anything bad about attorneys, but I also, in today's day and age, I really prefer things that don't have gatekeepers telling you that you must do something a certain way when it comes to your family and your day-to-day life. So, you know, I was reading about mediation recently just to make sure that everything that I'm doing, everything that I'm telling my clients, it still remains, you know, today's best practices. I think that we all understand, as divorced people, I would say all divorced people understand that if you could have made it work, you would have. If you could have stayed married, you would have. But here you are. And so, of course, the other side's not going to be totally easy to work with. They're not going to be loving hanging out with you in a room for 2 hours, talking about finances and parenting time. I get that. At the same time, I think there is a huge need for people to consider alternative dispute resolution when it comes to their family law matters. So, you know, here I'm just looking over, this is a great book. I recommend getting it from your public library. It's from NOLO. They're a reputable company, and it's just Divorce Without Court, a guide to mediation and collaborative divorce. And basically it just says, you know, in mediation, a trained neutral third party, not necessarily, but ideally a lawyer, helps you and your spouse negotiate a complete settlement of all the issues that must be decided in your divorce, from the legal and financial to the social and emotional. The mediator does not decide for you, so you have control over the outcome of the case. In mediation, you and your spouse communicate directly as much as possible. Even when you communicate through the mediator, having fewer people involved in the communication cuts down on the chances of a misunderstanding. Absolutely, that is true. Mediation is informal, it goes on to say. You and your spouse, with the mediator's help, set all the ground rules for exchanging information. You control the timing and the scope of the entire process without having to adhere to elaborate and expensive, it says that, expensive legal procedures. Mediation usually takes much less time and is usually much less expensive than litigation. It can even take place all in one day. It literally can. Although most divorcing couples meet for several sessions on separate days over a period of days, weeks, or months. Yes, exactly that. That's exactly what I'm trying to do with co-family mediation. It's a pay-as-you-go approach. You know, you pay for one session, you have one session. If you want to come back next week and wrap that whole thing up, by all means, let's do it. But if your budget doesn't really allow for that and you need to wait about a month to get things in order and to get your ducks in a row, that's also an option. With mediation, you control the speed, you control the cost, and you make sure that things are fair, future-focused, affordable, integrative, and respectful. That's all I ask for people, is that they can just really focus on the future, let the past be in the past, ignore the things that you can't control and focus on what you can control, which is what are our guidelines going to be for parenting and co-parenting specifically? How are we going to communicate? How are we going to divide up the days of the week? How are we going to divide up the holidays of the year? Who's paying for what and what percentage? And what are we going to do with the things that we own that we need to dissolve, such as our marital residence or other marital property like accounts, retirement accounts, bank accounts, credit cards, debit cards, all of these things that we don't think about, cars, you name it, all the responsibilities for paying for college expenses someday in the future. Depending upon how distant that future may be, the answer may be different for you. So all I'm trying to do with co-family mediation is share information and mediate good, strong settlements, because 9 times out of 10, your litigated divorce is going to end in a marital settlement agreement. That's what good attorneys do. That's what we hope for you. That's what the judges hope for you. That's what everyone in a family law bar association hopes for their clients. Yes, they'll get some fighting back and forth and they'll have their day in court, but at what cost? $300, $400 an hour? Over the course of a divorce, you're looking at paying tens of thousands of dollars to your attorney. I'm not talking about the actual, estate and your marital assets that you have to divide, because of course, 100 divided by 2, it's not necessarily 50-50, but you're not getting 100% of your marital estate. That's just the way it is. Just as you're not going to get all of 7 days of the week of parenting time every week, 52 weeks a year. You're going to lose some things in your divorce, and you have to grieve that loss. That's a very important part of the process that I think gets a little bit lost on the attorneys who are maybe overpromising, maybe telling you that you are entitled to more than maybe you might actually be. You don't want people giving you false promises and false hopes of an outcome that sounds really good to you, because if it's really good for you, chances are it's really not great for your co-parent, the other parent of your children, the person who also needs to provide a good life and to be a happy person for your children. Because the best thing we can do for our kids, whether we're married or not, is take care of ourselves and be happy and content people who do a good job working and being role models for our kids. These are important principles that I bring with me into every mediation session that I have. And I'm not a therapist. I know that. I acknowledge that. But I'm an empathetic listening ear, and I'll take the time to discuss things with people. I'll take the time to look at what might have been said that was hurtful and how we can adjust that moving forward, and how we can communicate about specific issues moving forward. Absolutely. That's what lawyers do anyway. We are in our nature counselors of law. We counsel people on what the law requires of us, what the law allows us to do, but also at the end of the day, how to be a reasonable person to keep ourselves out of court. You know, reasonable people don't stay in court very long. That's the truth. You might find yourself in court for something someday, and it's a difficult time, regardless of what the nature of the issue might be. If you are in a personal injury matter, if you are filing bankruptcy, if you committed some type of a crime, all of those things are very painful situations if you really look at it. And so in a family law matter, it's no different. If you're finding yourself in court for a long period of time, there is something to that. Somebody's being unreasonable. And you have to look at it and ask yourself if it's you. It might be, and it might not be. There is a time and place for adversarial litigation. When the person that you're trying to divorce is being completely unreasonable, if they are causing problems that could harm your children or bankrupt you, or if they are causing so much problem that you cannot get through to them, you can't communicate with them effectively, then yeah, you do have to resort to the means of skilled and savvy attorneys who practice family law on a regular basis. You've got to go to someone who is reputable, someone you can trust to take you through your divorce, and then you should pay them for their services, absolutely. I'm not saying otherwise. However, there are a lot of us, myself included, who can handle these things like adults, get through your divorce, and end up in a really good spot. It's just, you know, what do they say? 50% of marriages might end up here. I hope that that number goes down. I really do. I hope that people can find ways to work things out. But I think that communication is key, regardless of whether you stay married or you make that decision to get divorced. I think that there are certain things where only you know what is your limit and what is your deal breaker when it comes to staying in a marriage. Only you know when it's time to leave. But when it is time, do it in a way that feels right to you. Do it in a way that is respectful of your co-parent, because you did have children with that person. You did have some love there at one time. So all of these things are to say that I didn't choose to be divorced. I didn't want this. I didn't see this coming. I also was not so sure I wanted to be a divorce attorney, but I feel like, you know, maybe God made me a divorce attorney for a reason, that I knew that I wanted to help people, that I want to help children and have, you know, an impact on their lives. And I also want to use my skills in problem solving and communicating to be of service to others. And maybe this is how I do it. So this is what I'm doing these days. And I thank you for watching this video. I'm posting this in hopes that someone might find me and think that I'd be a good fit for their mediation needs. I'm a family law mediator and family law attorney in the state of Illinois, and Co-FamilyMediation.com is my website. You can find me online on Instagram, Facebook, the occasional TikTok. I'm trying to get the word out there that I think that we can do a lot of good and get people divorced and keep people in better positions than if they were to just go full throttle through a nasty, litigated, expensive, lengthy divorce. And my hope is to just make life better for children, one co-family at a time. So if that's something that you think that you need, and if I'm someone you think you can trust to handle your divorce mediation, I would be honored if you called and we scheduled a free consultation and we can discuss whether this is right for you or not. I'm happy to help, and I hope that this video might have been helpful to shed some light on this way of thinking. It's different than others, and every attorney is going to have their own thoughts on the process, but these are mine. So, Chrissy White, Co-Family Mediation. My number is 630-423-6377. And I have an answering service, so if I'm not available, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. and I look forward to working with you. And if not, I wish you all the best in your divorce. I really do highly recommend any kind of resources like this when you go to the public library. There are a lot of books out there on divorce, but this one actually, I think with Nolo, they're a reputable company and they definitely have some valuable information to share. So thank you so much for watching, and take care.